we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. I am so excited, and you are going to be too. We are talking today to Kettia Ming, and she has a really interesting story, a little bit of her circuitous route to get where she is currently. So we're going to get to hear a little bit about her story, and I know that you're just going to get so much wisdom and advice and entertainment out of today. So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll ask her a random question. Kettia Ming is the executive director of the Black Theater United. It's a nonprofit that she transformed from under 200K to 1.5 million operating budget in 4 years, which for a nonprofit, that is a huge accomplishment. But before leading the arts, she built and scaled a childcare business from her basement to seven figures and four Manhattan locations, ultimately selling to two Fortune 500 companies. Then one of those companies came after her with a legal battle that nearly destroyed everything. She has written a book called Run the Mile You're In, and it came out in May of 2026, and it's the story of that exit and what it actually takes to survive hard things and become stronger, which is a lesson I think we can all learn, right? So excited to have you here today, Kettia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Excellent. All right. A little bird told me, and if you happen to be watching on video, you can see lots and lots of awards and medals. And so, can you tell us a little bit about where those medals came from?
Yeah, sure. So I am a marathon runner. I used to be more of a marathon runner. Right now I just run, but I don't train anymore or race anymore. But I've run 13 marathons, including the Boston Marathon. And pretty much every medal behind me represents a finish line of some sort, right? Whether that was a marathon, a 10K, a half. But what I love about running is that the medal is just such a small part of it. It's really your victory lap. It's not the journey. The real story is the journey. It's everything that happened before the marathon. It's the training, it's the terrible runs, it's the injuries, it's the days where you wanted to quit, but you went out anyway. So, running has taught me so much about life, and it's taught me not to be overwhelmed by the entire distance because it's a long way to go. And you hear people say this all the time that life is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and it's not. And you don't have to run all 26 miles at the same time. You just need to run the mile you're in. And that's been a great philosophy for me that served me really well. And that's the central philosophy that is in my book. And that's why it's called Run the Mile You're In.
Love it. Love it. And I think that tale of resilience and the idea that you get up and do it. And here's the thing. I'm from California. So
Mhm.
what it means to get up and do it in the San Francisco Bay Area and what
Right.
it means to get up and do it in New York are two different things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah, because I'm sure that you have run in, the weather here is, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
50 degrees out, it's raining.
Yeah,
You're like, oh,
it's
that's a
true.
nice day.
That's a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very fun. All right, let's get into the conversation because, again, I think running is a piece of it. And I think it's definitely speaks to your character and I think who you are. What's one piece of conventional business wisdom that you followed early on only to realize that it really was not right for you?
I would have to say growth. The conventional wisdom that when you start a business that the goal is always growth, that it's always about growth. I think there are times when that's true, right? There are times
Mhm.
when
Sure.
yes, you want your business to grow And then there are some businesses where the owner is like, I'm perfectly happy being a six-figure business. We don't always have to scale to a seven-figure business or eight, because that's what's on the internet, right? And for me, so early on in my entrepreneurship career, I assumed that a successful business meant that more locations, more revenue, more employees, more, just more, right? And there are times, like I said, that's the right decision. But growth also brings complexity, more money, more problems, right? So that's not always necessarily that's what you should be going for. You should be asking yourself the right questions for you. And the better question became to me was why, what am I building? Why am I building this? And what will it require from me to sustain it? I think
Mhm.
sustainability is so important because you can keep growing, sure, but where are you going? And most importantly, how are you sustaining that? From a founder's point of view, from a
Right.
capacity from a view, how are you going to sustain that? So I think that became a better question for me.
And
Yeah.
I do think, especially because you ran daycares, that they are, it's different businesses and different business models have different profitability,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's one thing to take on, for instance, like more employees, which is a big responsibility. But
Mhm.
you also meant taking on leases,
Yeah.
and which is, you can't just, not that you would ever want to do this, but you could lay off an employee, but you can't
Hmm.
just go to an owner, a property owner, and say, oh, you know what, we're downsizing. We think we won't pay this lease.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, 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 exactly.
I think depending on what business you're in, talk about more complexity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's big. Yeah, it's big.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. You know
Yeah.
what's really interesting too, because she's a former client, but I did actually coach a daycare owner who had
Hmm.
four locations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not too long ago. And I don't know if this ever happened to you, but the other interesting thing that happened to her, which is one of the sort of transitions that I helped her make, is that she had her office in one of the locations,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I helped her actually move to an office space. It was
Okay.
outside of the facility
Yeah.
because when she was there, she became the extra director, right? Oh, you know what? One of the staff needs to go to the doctor's appointment, right?
Yeah.
Can you just,
Step in.
step in, right?
Uh-huh.
And she really had a hard time getting out of the day-to-day operational piece of it
Yeah.
when she was actually on site.
Hmm.
And here's the reality, maybe this isn't true across the board, but most people who own daycares, or not daycares, but daycares or nurseries or
Hmm.
whatever, you do it because you love kids and you love early childhood learning and all those things. So it makes it that much harder to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Everything you explained, that's definitely part of the course in a childcare center. As the executive director or the director, you always back up. You never not back up. If you are at the center and a teacher has to leave or something happens, somebody's running late or whatever it is, or the lunch schedule got mixed up somehow and so you always stepping in. And so what happens is you become an employee of the business, right? Instead of
Exactly.
running the business.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I remember a friend, this was a while ago, a friend had said to me when I was maybe 4 or 5 years in, she said, I wish I had listened. She was like, you're never going to feel okay about this until you stop being an employee of your business. Because right now you're the founder, you're the executive director, but you're also an employee.
That's
And that's why everything is so heavy and everything is so much. And that's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. All right. As a successful business leader, what's one thing that people assume that you've got it all figured out? And underneath it all, you're like, eek, I don't have this figured out.
That's funny because somebody asked me a question very similar to this recently on another podcast. And because I've done so much and they've been so different, like going from childcare to now nonprofit, or I've built an app. I've done so many different things that people are like, oh, you must have great confidence. People think I'm very confident. Like, how did I step into a nonprofit and lead it? How did I even say yes to that job? And I'm not. I'm very good at building and I know how to work and solve problems and create structure and keep moving. I understand the language of a startup like really well. So that's something I'm very good at. But the confidence just kind of, you never really get confident, right? And then that's it. I'm confident now. No, it is something that follows you throughout the journey of your life. And there are times when, yeah, sure, you're confident about your skill set and who you are, but it doesn't mean that it's like, oh, I can do this. I've just learned how to move in spite of not feeling confident about something. I've learned how to move past, because all it is the opposite of that is just fear, right? So I've learned how to move past it and to do the thing anyway and to say yes anyway,
Right.
right? And a lot of times, once you do that, the answers will come as you move. But first, you have to move. Yeah.
And as we said in your introduction, I think you people are probably quaking in their boots when I read that intro, right? One of those Fortune 500 companies came
Yeah.
after you, right,
Yeah.
in a legal battle.
Like
So,
hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
as only a corporation with a lot of money and therefore power can do,
That's
right?
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, go after the little people because
Mhm.
somehow we have to do that. Somehow that's important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think this is a great time, right? Like, how do you get past that? Oh, but wait, actually, you know what? Here's a better question. A
Hmm.
better question is, so you sell your company, you think you're great, you're done, whatever.
Hmm.
It's a two-parter. How did you find out about the lawsuit? Did you get served and that's how you found out? And
Hmm.
then what was your immediate reaction?
Yes, so I found out, interestingly enough, on the train home from the Boston Marathon. It was the day after the marathon. I was on the Amtrak heading to New York from Boston. And I had gotten all these emails that I was ignoring because I was busy, right? I was busy running my race and doing my thing. And so I finally start to go through just scrolling through my emails when I get the email from the person over at Bright Horizons who said, oh, we've been trying to reach you and we understand that you're building a new center, XYZ, that is within 100 feet of your non-compete, and we believe you in that you breached the blah, 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 blah. It's all legal stuff, right? So I immediately sent that to my attorney who said, oh, they're just bluffing. They just want to keep you from working, blah, 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 right? And then there were like a string of other emails that it became very clear that they were not bluffing and that they were really trying to stop me from opening a new center, and they would take every legal action necessary to do so. It then became very serious. I think my first reaction was denial. I was in denial that this was happening, and then I was angry, and then I was scared. I went through the gamut of emotions,
Right.
just
Sure.
trying to figure out what's next. What do we do? How do I fight? How do I? So it was everything all at once, and it was incredibly stressful. And when you think about a new business, even though this was not technically a new business, it really was another startup because once I sold the other two and I was opening up these brand new two businesses, they were startups for all intents and purposes. And my ex-husband and I at the time had sunk basically all of the proceeds from the sale into this new business because we were going to do it bigger and better and all of that, right? So now I'm thinking of things like my children's future. My kids have to go to college. What is going to happen? Our home. So all of these things come into play and I'm like, it's all in jeopardy. So everything comes crashing down, and in that moment, I don't think I had the right term for it that I could tell you right now, that I had the right language to explain, but I had to go super still in that moment in order to just function. I couldn't freak out. I couldn't throw a tantrum. I couldn't scream and yell. It was the opposite. I went inwards and I had to go really still and I had to really think and I had to, yes, I had the legal people doing their thing and there were so many of them. But for me, I had to figure out how am I going to get through this in one piece with my family. intact. So those were my thoughts. That's what I was
Mhm.
dealing with in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about having resilience. And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, and I know, listen, listener, read the book, right? Because there's a book. So
Yeah.
read the book, and we'll have the link to the book in the show notes for you. But I think the how did you handle, or maybe a better way is they literally sued you over 100 feet. So, what sort of self talk did you have about that? Did you ever think I should have measured or I should have known? Or were you just kind of who would have ever thought?
No, but that's the thing. I measured. I did. I measured because I
Uh,
knew about the contract. So that
uh-huh.
line didn't come out of nowhere. The as the crow flies came out of nowhere. But the non-compete itself, I knew that was in the contract. And so I measured. I measured it the way you walk, the way you run, the way you drive a car, right? I measured it in human terms. They measured it in as the crow flies, which means from one point to the other, the way the bird flies, not the way you and I are going to walk, right? So I use my Garmin, I use all the different whatever you can imagine. And it was a mile and a half, and I was well within the mile and a half. But for them, it was 100 feet as the crow flies. And that's the part. So the person who would have been able to tell me this was a surveyor. I did not know that person existed. I didn't know who that
Sure,
was.
right.
That's the part I didn't know. So
Yeah,
had I hired that person, he would have told me you are within 100 feet as the crow flies. He would have known that to tell me that. Not even my attorney could have told me that, but that person
right.
would have told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, right. I don't think you can, how much can you beat yourself up over that? Right.
exactly.
Like, you don't even, right. I
Yeah,
would have done the exact same thing. I would have just measured,
yeah,
right? Like,
I
how would you
did.
know that
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
an appropriate way to measure it?
And I still beat myself over it. I did at the time. I beat myself a lot over it. I was like, oh, I should have known. I should have blah, blah, blah. But you can't take anything back. You
That's
can't
right.
go back, right? Should have, could have, would have. Never
Right.
anyone in the history
That's
of
right.
history.
And also, if I had been your friend or your coach at the time, I would
Yeah,
have said, stop that right now.
yeah.
The I should have known. Like, no, you shouldn't. How
How
could you?
could you? Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I understand that. I understand the thinking. So I don't want to say, oh, you have distorted thinking because I think it's really linear, right? Of
Hmm.
course, you're like, I'm a smart person, right? This has huge consequences. I should have
Yeah,
known. Except that there's no way you don't know what you don't know. And so
exactly.
I think if you actually had measured, there's no way that you could. So, I mean, this idea like you should have known, no,
Yeah.
you really shouldn't. And unless your attorney knew what that was, like,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's something that it took me a while
yeah,
to
you got to
give
work your
myself
way through it.
grace over that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't want to spoil the story, but it's in your rear view at this point, right?
It is. It is in my
Yeah.
rear view at this point. And I go obviously in details about that whole the fallout from this and exactly what happened after and so on and so forth. And people tell me that the book is like a little bit of a page, it's a page turner, but also a reflection. So it's a very different type of memoir. And it's been very gratifying to hear from readers what they've thought about the book and how it's helped them in any way, shape,
Hmm.
or form. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why you're being a guest on the podcast is such a great match because I think this
Yeah.
idea about helping people like your journey help
Hmm.
other people, right? So here's the thing, if you have a non-compete and
Yeah.
it is around property lines, now you know what you need to
Yeah.
look out for. So now you already have some, right?
Exactly.
We've already given you value. But I think I'm being facetious at this point,
Hmm.
but I think this idea of resilience, this idea of doing hard things, right? And you're a person who does hard things and wins. You got the
Yeah.
medals behind you to prove it,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so my next question for you is if you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, what's one outdated belief that you throw away immediately and what would you replace it with?
Yeah, I would say the idea that as a leader, as the boss, the founder, whatever, that you have to have all the answers. I don't think any one person should have all the answers. I think if the idea is to definitely have clarity about your mission and your vision, that you can share that in the right way to the folks that you're bringing on so that they can take ownership, right? So you're not carrying everything yourself. And every single decision and every single question should not have to come through you. I think that creates bottleneck. It creates just a lot of almost insecurity in leaders that oh, if you don't know it, somehow that's a fail. And I
Right.
don't believe that's the case. I think more important than that is to have crystal clear clarity on what the vision is for your company, your organization, or whatever it is that you're doing. And so the people around you feel confident and comfortable in their role as well, because that's what you can give to them versus just telling them everything as opposed to them figuring it out. Yeah.
I think there's a couple things there. First of
Hmm.
all, is that even if you are a leader who can provide clarity, if you don't provide a culture of safety, and there's safety in different ways, but what I am talking about specifically right now is the safety to make a mistake and own it.
Yes. Yes.
So if you don't have a place where that is modeled and okay, then people don't own up to their mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's a problem, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you can't solve something that you don't see or know about.
Yeah.
And then I think the second part that is really important there is, do the people who work for you, do your leaders, are they clear, as clear as they can be? There's always going to be
Mhm.
some gray area, but
Mhm.
are they as clear as they can be about what decisions they can actually make and what do they need to run by you?
Yeah, that's the whole idea of ownership. Exactly. And I love that you brought up the idea of safety because that definitely starts at the top. Because if you can model that, then your team now feels safe to speak up, or like you said, if they make a mistake, to own up to it. Because everybody learns from that, as opposed to just everybody's so scared of the boss that they won't admit or own up to mistakes. Yeah.
And here's where the complexity comes in, right? We're talking about it when somebody owns their mistake and there can be some problem solving around it, or they can
Mhm.
come up with some solutions, right? And you can figure it out. And I think everybody is stronger. But here is the real reality, right? There are some mistakes that are not, that you can't, as an employee, that you can't come back from, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's why being a leader and a manager is so complex, because
Hmm.
you, on the one hand, I agree that you've got to model it, and you have to create an atmosphere and clarity around what it means for owning your own mistake, for coming up with solutions, right? For sharing that. On the one hand, and on the other hand, it still doesn't mean you're not going to get fired.
True. That is true.
And
Yeah.
I think what's interesting, let me ask you this, because I think this is interesting. So, because there, and as there should be, there is so much compliance and so much rules when you on from a daycare, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and really you have safety of small humans that can't take care of themselves, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
thank God we have all these regulations and rules, right? And I think what's interesting about that, but you'll tell me, I'm going to say it as a statement, but you'll let me
Mhm.
know the rules are very clear,
Yeah.
right? And you break the rules, there are sometimes there's no coming back from it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just a fireable offense because your little humans just depend on you, and your
Hmm.
licensure depends on following the rules and all those things. Much, not that there isn't some subtlety, but it's much more clear cut. When you lead an organization like you currently lead, I think that, or anybody who leads a team in professional services or in
Mhm.
or whatever, I think that it's more, there's a lot more gray space.
Yes.
Yeah, so you would agree with that?
There is. So in an organization that I am like right now, where obviously it's nonprofit, but also it's a service type organization. It's interesting. Again, I'm going to go back to the word safety. It's really important for the people that I work with, like my team. It's really important that they feel safe, that they can speak up in our environment, in the way that we work, because sometimes things will come up. Sometimes somebody will say something. And I work with a lot of Gen Z mostly. So they have a very different way of looking at things that we never would have thought of when we were at that age, because it was, again, a very different culture for us when we were in our 20s and our 30s, but it's very different now. And so there are things that I think about that I have to implement, that I have to really make sure that is part of the culture that I never would have thought about before, even in daycare. There are certain conversations that I have to manage that I would have never had to before. And I understand that this is how it is. This is where we are. This is what they need in order for them to do their job. And I am here to do that as their leader, to make sure that they have everything they need. They have the resources, they have the safe space, they have the et cetera, et cetera. So that's a huge thing. Safety, safe space, it's a big part of the type of leadership that you have to be nowadays in order to lead a team. Yeah.
I would, yes, absolutely. And I'm just thinking about that. And I would also imagine. So are most of the people who you, since it's a Black theater, are most of your people are Black, African American, Caribbean American, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix, but it's mostly Black and brown people of color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually don't think that I really have thought about this, but I would imagine you just tell me whether this is your experience or not.
Hmm.
But like growing up, even Black in America, like your experience as a 20-year-old,
Yeah.
as a person of color, is
Hmm.
so vastly different than
Absolutely.
somebody who is 40s, 50s, 60s,
Yes.
and onward, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not even talking about those people. Let's say you grew up after like the 60s,
Hmm.
right? But your experience is just so different,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I would imagine that could be complex at times.
Oh, very much
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
Ooh,
had to
that's a great,
navigate some very difficult conversations.
yeah. Oh, but that's like
You
a
know?
whole nother podcast episode,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought about it in a lot of different contexts because I quote unquote sit at a lot of different tables. And I've thought about it in regards because I'm a cisgender white woman, right? I've
Hmm.
thought
Hmm.
about it regards to gender, right? Thought
Yeah.
about it in a lot of different ways, but I think this is the first time that it occurred to me, oh, like within the community, there's some very different experiences,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Because we're not a monolith, right? So
of
definitely you're
course.
gonna have different experiences, because there's socioeconomic, there's just education and this, there's so many different
Right,
categories. And so people will come together, and as a leader, you have to know how to respect each and every single one, but also how to make the organization work, how to make the space work for everyone so that everybody feel respected and have
right.
a sense of belonging, which is really important to have that sense of belonging in, because even though it is a Black organization, the word belonging is so important. You can invite people in. It doesn't mean that feel that they
100%.
belonged. So that's
That's
a
right.
huge part of some of the things that I work with and have to navigate in my
Right.
role. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then
Hmm.
at the end of the day, and I am agreeing with you 100% and
Hmm.
acknowledging how important that is. And
Yeah.
then I don't know if I can say this on the podcast, but then shit needs to get done.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And like you're getting
Yeah.
paid to do a
We still have to
job
get it
and
done.
you
Yeah.
got to get it done.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's helped you? You pick the context, but help you grow as a professional, helped you grow the
Hmm.
business.
I don't drill down on problems. And that's
Mhm.
something that I've learned. I'm not the person that If there's something to solve, if there's an issue, that I will sit at my computer until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or we're not leaving here until we figure it out. I'm not that person. I will walk away from a problem because I find that, and it's happened consistently, like especially when something was big and heavy, if I can make myself step away from that, take a walk. I want to say take a run, but not everybody runs, but honestly, take a walk, take a hike, take a shower. Anything that gets you away from from the energy of that problem and start to guide you towards the solution. It's something my dad, who's passed away, always used to say, there's not a problem that you don't have the solution for. You just have to be quiet enough and be still enough and be patient enough, and it will come through. And it's really helped me. Yeah. And it's true.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, your dad was a very wise man. That is incredibly good advice.
Yeah.
I love that. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think I really don't, I just love what you said. I don't want to take it in a different direction because it was so complete. I think the only thing I would add to is that sometimes when I have something to solve and a tip to do what your dad advised, sometimes right before I go to bed, I'll ask myself the question, how do I solve for X, or what do I do about X? And I don't let my conscious, I just ask the question
Yeah.
with curiosity, and then I go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then you let your subconscious mind in the realm of, you do know the answer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will just ask myself the question, and then I'll either wake up with the answer, or sometime during the day when I'm not thinking about it, when I'm doing
It
something
comes.
else,
Yeah.
it'll just be
Yeah.
there.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that we can get woo-woo like all you want. That's another podcast, right? But I love
Yeah.
that. That's my lane. I love what you said. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, for this podcast, we'll do the next one, but for this
Yeah.
one, many leaders secretly battle. So I'm going to ask you this in two parts. I think that what I'd like to hone in on, but if you don't want to go here, you just tell me. But
Hmm.
I wonder, like, when you get this lawsuit from this major Fortune 500 company, does any imposter syndrome come up? Did it come up around that, or does it come up? Probably not now because you're like, I got it. I got it solved. But I wonder in what context it does come up for you.
Imposter syndrome for me is, again, it's very similar to the theme, the topic of confidence that we talked about a little bit earlier. I still get imposter syndrome. I didn't understand what imposter syndrome was
Yeah,
earlier in my career.
sure.
But as I got older, and I would say after the lawsuit, it definitely took a big chunk of my confidence, more than I ever thought about it before then. And so I battle imposter syndrome just like anybody else does. But what I do is, again, now that I know where it's coming from, I can basically, I work with it instead of against it, right? It's the same thing as like when I said about the confidence. I know this tiny voice in my head is saying, who do you think you are? And who gave you permission to do that? There's always that little like background noise. It's again choosing to do the thing and ignoring it, or with it. You work with it as opposed to fight it. I don't fight the voice. I just
Right.
know it's there. I acknowledge it, but I don't fight it. But I love that you framed it in the context of the lawsuit, because the lawsuit certainly did something to my psyche, and it did make me feel like somewhat of a failure, that I did something wrong, that I did something that I should have known better. And if I was smarter, I would have known better. And if I had gone to business school, I would have known better, that sort of stuff. I later obviously realized that was all just that background noise. But at the time when it's happening, you don't think that, right? At the time when it's
That's right.
happening, you give it validation, you think it's truth, but it's really not. It's really not. I learned later. And now I can identify the difference between when it's just a voice in my head versus a real, actual, you don't know what you're doing sort of thing. So there's definitely been growth along that path, but it certainly doesn't go away. I think it's a lifelong thing, and it's choosing to do the thing, to move forward, to say yes, and to not let that be the thing that holds you back. Yeah.
And for me, I think the most significant thing that you said there, and you said it as if everybody does it, but my experience is that people don't, which is
Mm-hmm.
that you acknowledge the voice, hear it. You make a choice about what you're going to do
Mm-hmm.
about. But I think the people that get themselves in trouble is that they react to the feeling, to the emotion of the trigger
Yeah.
versus listening, because for so many of us that negative self-talk or noise, we don't even hear it
Yeah.
because it's just a script that runs in the background. So
Yeah.
that acknowledging that it's there and then being able to make a decision about
Yeah.
what you're going to say back to it, what you're,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do whatever anyway, right? As opposed to being
Yeah.
reactionary. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal because when you are reactionary, what you're doing is you are giving it validation and you taking it as truth, and it's not truth.
That's right.
It isn't truth.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing, is acknowledging it as it's there. I know it's there, but that's not going to dictate, right? That's not going to
Right.
get a vote.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right. I like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, friend, this has been so much fun. I really do think we definitely have another episode or two in
I
us. So we'll we'll
agree.
we'll talk about that. Um,
Right.
but listener, you have been listening to me. I'm Kim Miller-Hershon. You have been listening to Kettia Ming, who just has such a compelling story. I really encourage you to read her book. Tell us the name of the book again.
Run the mile you in.
Run the mile you're in. Like I said, we will have the link in the show notes. Please go check that out. And I am just so delighted to have had this conversation with you. I think you really gave the audience a lot to think about. For me, listener, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. When we talk about a lot of the things that we talked about today, I address those things with a chance to reframe and do a little exercise and a little tip on how to not do it anymore, which is always a good thing. Thank you for listening. This is Kim Miller-Hershon, Kim Miller-Hershon Coaching and Consulting. You've been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. Go out there and be a better human.
Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet.